on the show. Just two friends getting reacquainted in front of a whole bunch of people.
Perfect.
Let me make sure it goes here. Let's see here. And you're going to be doing most of the talking, so I'm good. Okay,
Okay.
looks like
Just
we're
direct me and I will keep talking.
oh yeah, you're good. You're going to be fine. Okay. All right, let's see here. What is going on? It looks like uh, okay. I'll have to tag you after the show. All right, so here we go. Uh, oh my God, I'm looking at the wrong thing here. Let me see. Okay. Okay, so we are live on Facebook and X and YouTube. And this is the 071, episode 071 of 2025, Felicity Bolicenco. Did I say it right?
You
I
did.
know I got close.
Perfect.
Uh, yeah, so Felicity was one of the many feminines people, but the majority of them were the feminine that raised their hand and said, this is back in late January. I put a couple of posts on, like, I want to have real discussions. And some people said, well, I thought that's what you always did. But to me, something's changed in 2025. So I said this before, and I think I made it clear. This is a sacred space. We're going to enter together into the unknown, which is really what it seems all to be coming down to, because we can never have the guarantees. And when we surrender, we go into the mother's holy darkness in her womb, and we can create again. Uh, but yeah, it's a special time. There's a lot of stuff going on. The most important thing is what's going on with ourselves. So it's an honor for me to have Felicity here today.
Thank you,
From a
Todd.
human perspective, but I know her from her energy and from architect. The the a little bit weak. It should get better. But welcome, Joe Felicity. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing sacred space with all of us. And I look forward to no, no, you too. If you want to tell us about yourself, or if you want to jump into the energy, you asked me, how are you doing right now? I just
Okay.
started out, but
Yeah. Okay. I have felt the call to share more about what's on my heart with the world because um, I have stepped up and I want to celebrate that in a more public way and be more
oh,
visible.
yeah,
And when you put out a call for having a chat and sharing with everybody about what we are about and what the world's thinking and feeling, I thought that's great. That's just what I want to do. I want to get out there and talk about what we're all going through right now. Um, so, if I tell you a bit about myself, I am a complementary therapist. And what I've done in recent months is work very hard to combine quite a few modalities together to bring something to the world that's really going to help people with their journey, their spiritual journey. So, what I do is I combine astrology with different healing holistic principles, and this provides a framework where people can really feel into who they are becoming. Just trying to make this understanding of the elements accessible for everybody. That's my main goal.
I like that. There's a couple of things that come up with that. I'm glad you brought up astrology. I've been wanting to have a discussion with somebody. I have a lot of friends that are into astrology, but I wanted to have a discussion, or at least part of a discussion at some point, and maybe we'll have
Yeah.
an opportunity, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, in regard to astrology as an example of everything that exists, these cookie crumb trails home, these templates, people might call them overlays, whatever,
Hmm.
and just have a little discussion. But I've always been very curious about it. But you also were talking about where you're at now and how you're taking everything that was brought into your field through your connection with, basically with infinite intelligence, putting those into human terms, and then actually remake. I call it remixing. It's like,
Yeah.
Mary Magdalene, Jesus, Buddha, Kuan Yin came down the road. We had that information. We came into the world with it. Then we have a human experience and a wake up, and now we're in some different phase of where we're starting to create. And I think it's like a remix. It's we take the codes they gave us, we add our experiential coding to it, and we start to share it in co-creation and collaboration. Kind of
Yes.
like the old. My wife and I were talking about it last night. She was getting a channel, and I said, or relating experience in kind of a channel. I said, "Oh my God, it's like the old ways of oral tradition, where the coding's being passed, you know, person to person, and getting away from, the things that we were told, and so on. It's like a greater sense of self-sourcing and mutual
Yeah.
collaboration. But yeah, could you tell us a
I
little bit?
really
Yeah,
do.
yeah. Could you
Oh,
tell
yeah, I really
us
wanted
a
to
little bit?
comment on what you just said. Um,
Yes, yeah.
with
There's a
your
lag,
wife.
everybody's. Yeah, go ahead. You
Yeah,
got me.
yeah. What you're saying with your wife, I've been thinking about the similar things recently about how many of us are born, well, we're all born, but we're all born usually into a belief system that's given to us, a name that's given to us, and an identity that's given to us. And what do we do with that? We go along in life's journey, and then at some point, maybe we question it. Maybe we question, what is this belief system that I've been given? Do I really identify with this? Is this something that I feel truly in my heart is the right way to go? And this is coming from a personal experience of mine, where I've questioned my belief system as a child. And I think more people now are doing that. They're questioning what they've been taught, and they're looking for answers. And we have a lot of, I'm not going to go into aspects and degrees of astrology because I want this podcast to be really accessible for everybody. And I'm all about breaking down systems and boundaries for understanding. So I feel very strongly about that. So I'll just say that there's a lot of elemental fire energy. And with all this fire energy that we have at the moment, it's really making people think more about their identity. They want to know who am I? I don't really recognize myself anymore. The world has changed so much. I'm feeling really different. What am I feeling? And how can I make sense of that? So that's really about what I do. I'm bringing that space so that people can feel empowered in their own healing, and that they can start to get to know themselves again through the elements. So I use astrology in a very different way to most people. And I believe, this is just my opinion maybe for now, and I'm not taking away from all the people that work very hard with astrology, because it takes many, many, many years to learn astrology. There's like 80 different astrological systems. It can be very complex, but I believe that these systems are a big barrier to people actually being able to connect with themselves and understand who they are and where they're coming from. So this is my mission, to try and simplify and to make astrology a really accessible way of therapy, and a way of living your life as a lifestyle. So like a living astrology, if you like.
I heard all of it but the last two sentences. But I like what I'm hearing.
So
Uh,
I was just
it's it,
saying
it's
that
new
to make astrology
uh,
living astrology. So it's practical, it's tangible, it it's something people can really relate to and understand.
Yes.
That's how I believe it needs to change. These systems, they create barriers for understanding.
Okay. Wow, that's crazy that I wanted to have a conversation. I've always wanted to have this conversation. That's kind of part of what's happening now on the earth, in my opinion, is we're having these intersecting, weaving points. We can call them synchronicities. I call them physical synchronicities because they're becoming more than numbers. So I just thought I'd acknowledge that because there is an expansion of a higher level of communication or a higher level of telepathy or something's changed. It grows in awareness and therefore grows in strength. But so yeah, I think we can handle this. This is fantastic. So if I'm understanding, just because I'm breaking it up a little bit, I think it's getting better now. Um, well, first of all, I love the fact that you acknowledge that and I knew there was a lot because I've interviewed so many people that do Vedic and this and that, and there's just so many different astrologies or components of it. And that's not to take anything away from it, but if part of my dilemma, and it's not just astrology, and it's not like I'm not I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to expand. It could be astrology, it could be philosophy, it could be many, many different things, many cultural,
Mm.
things or whatever. So I try to look at things, and we know removing and removing things and looking again is kind of a one way go as much as it hurts sometimes. But okay, so like in your case, you've spent time, obviously connecting as we all have in our own way. You have this affinity for astrology, and then you go through your life experience and your practitionership, and I hope I'm getting this all right. And then you come out on the other side of it, so to speak, with activity, a new modality, whatever you want to call it, and you're giving it your best shot. And how long have you been doing this new version? And how long have you been doing this new version? And did I leave anything out in that summary?
No, that's very interesting what you've said about the soul growth, because when you were talking about the soul and how the soul grows and how it learns and how it understands, I really felt my own soul magnetizing towards what you said. And I thought, my soul it wants to speak about this thing where we have levels. We say that we need to do level 1 or level 2 or level 3 in education, but the soul doesn't know what level it's at. The soul just wants to grow. And I think that's really where we need to make these changes. We need to, and we've got the Pisces North Node at the moment, which means the collective are going through a period of time where they want to dissolve the barriers that stop the soul from growing. So we're all feeling into this conscious awareness that we don't want to be unconscious anymore. The soul doesn't have limits. The soul grows in its own time and space. And it's that realization that made me make these changes. And also finding my clients struggling and not enjoying learning about astrology, finding that it's complicated, that it's really difficult, that they're not really connecting with their own birth chart anymore, or never have really connected with it. And finding this as being a problem, me wanting to make those changes. And this is why I thought astrology needs to become practical. It needs to become fun, because honestly, sometimes it can be quite boring. It's very mathematical, and not everyone loves maths, so this is why I'm making these changes. And also we get to bring in those old ancient teachings like Chinese medicine and Ayurveda and all these other old understandings of the original, the real medicine, the real plant therapy, that's out there, the plant consciousness. All of this comes back in to play, and it becomes a lifestyle. It becomes a holistic lifestyle. So you can combine this with the astrology, or as I like to say, elemental living. So instead of worrying about whether you are a certain zodiac sign, maybe you just want to work with the water element. And people say to me, how can I do this? How can I connect with myself more? And literally just go out in nature, be in nature, connect with the trees and the plants and the flowers. There you will find the elements. If you need any convincing about astrology, astrology is just a fancy way of describing how the elements all weave together. And you can meet those elements in nature just by going out. You can meet the earth, you can meet the fire. If you build a fire, you can swim in the sea and be with the water. And that is actually astrology. Everything is astrology because it's living and breathing. It's the language of the universe speaking through us. And it really is that simple. And simplicity, I think, is the answer.
Yeah, there's a yes, awareness that's coming in more and more every day is it is simplicity. And I think the example you give, which is probably the best example, just to go outside and walk on the grass or on the beach or jump in the ocean, like you said, or a lake or a river. Uh,
Yeah.
there's no words there. Now you may have words come in and you may have, downloads and stuff, but the point is, and I'm also finding this happening with connection. So my wife and I have been together for 10 years, and most, I'd say probably 90%, 80, 90% of those days easy, we connect and do a session. And it's interesting how the sessions have evolved over the years because we haven't always been physically together. Okay. But over the last 11 months, we have been. And uh, I notice that there's more coming in without words. We're speaking less, yet there's something communicating to the body. We both mentioned plasma a lot. It seems to be
Mm.
part of this new grid or something. Um, and yeah, I can remember even as recent as last night and the night before, or 2 nights before, laying there and going, "Oh my God, there's sound, tone, there's
Mm.
color, there's visual, you know, eyes open, uh, energy. I'm not saying there's a being here, although the soul, even not like that, but just be one with it, you know, and then and listen. You were saying what we were talking about with the soul. Yeah, we've spent all this time like a dog chasing its tail, trying to prove soul, when the reality is we are soul. So there's this
Yeah.
weird flip taking place where the human's consciousness, my friend used to call it the active consciousness. We have an active consciousness, it's made up of the ego and the mental, this and that and this and that. But as we shift, then they get rearranged and there's a different balance, or there is balance. And as a result of that, from the human perspective, maybe for instance, the ego plays a different role. It's still part of it, but the
Yeah.
human, with what you're saying in the simplicity and what it reminded me of in these sessions, weird because you go, okay, I need to know more. And then information comes in and you're like, and it's like, you don't need to know, just know that you got it. Like you don't need to know everything every step of the way, right?
No. And it's really interesting because this is exactly what we're
Uh,
learning as a collective.
to describe
What is
astrology, it
important.
sounds like, go ahead. It's
Yeah, no, I was just thinking about what you've said, it is actually about more feeling into it, feeling into what is right for us than having to think about what we mentally know. So I think that we're becoming more confident as souls to trust ourselves and our intuition. And as we do this more and we sit in stillness and we suddenly become aware of our surroundings and we're aware of what's going on around us, the voices get louder. The guidance from the spiritual realm speaks with more emphasis, with a louder tone, and we can hear what we need in that moment. And when you trust in that and you start to practice being in stillness, and I always say this to people because a lot of people are struggling with sleep at the moment because we have this place is north node. So a lot of people, which rules dreams, a lot of people are having lots of dreams and struggling with sleep. And I'm saying, if you can't sleep, just rest and just sit with yourself. And that's a very difficult thing for people to do. That's not easy. People find that really difficult to just not do something or talk to somebody or be somewhere or be in a noisy environment. But it's so important because it's in those moments that the universe speaks to us. And we are being guided now as a collective to learn to trust those voices that come in through the inner parts of ourselves when we're in our silence, when we're in our stillness, and also to trust in that. And I think that's the next step, because we've got this identity crisis going on with the changes going on in the world. Everybody wants to know who they are and they're desperate for freedom, but everybody's also used to being told what to do. So it's getting away from that fear of, I can actually make my own decisions. I can actually trust. I can actually trust those voices. That's myself. That's my soul speaking to me, my higher self, or whatever you want to call it. And I can trust that because that's guiding me home.
Thank God you just keep going. I love it. I'm watching you on the screen on my phone. My computer's having a heck of a time. Yeah, and you were just saying, okay, yeah, it's like how do you encapsulate this? Yeah, the whole feeling thing. Yeah, and what you were saying, oh, I know what it was because it's the same pattern to me. Okay, so whether it's a pattern of, let's just say, not a pattern, but let's say three different instances. One instance is I got a bunch of things on my mind. I need to just go for a walk. And no plan, just go for a walk, get out there, take your shoes off and walk. And then there's something that happens to you. That
Yeah.
things come, okay. Then you might have a situation where you're in that we're used to, and I bet you a lot of people can relate to this, where you have a certain thing that worked for you. Like, hey, what's going on today? Okay, here we are, boom, boom, boom. And that changes.
Mm.
And, and we've always had a certain type of two-way communication differently, but really kind of the same. But
Mhm.
we're in more of a receiving mode, I guess you would say, a more openness. And there's been talk about the abundance frequencies expanding, as many things are, and the prerequisite that we have to be open to receive. How can we
Yeah.
ever have abundance if we can't receive? And it's been such a challenge in self-love and self-respect and self-honor and self-care and all the different things that we're learning to do for ourselves. But it's really part of our growth and our embodiment, I think. But I don't want to get off the track of the astrology because I'd like to pick up some pieces of information for you. I don't want to get into what I wanted, what I've been wanting to talk to somebody about. We can talk about it later because I don't want to take away from it. But I liked what you said about astrology. Two things before I got cut off. One, it's like when I came to turn, or when I first was introduced to the name Soulogy, knowing it's just a name for something, right? And pretty much described the way you described astrology, that it's actually everything. It's just another name for it. It could be Holy Spirit. It could be so many different things.
Hmm.
And so I really like that. And then this comprehensive field with 1,000 points of instruction and light and code and this, and not that it's not, but I can go into any quadrant or region or locality or modality or anything within that comprehensive field, and I can stick my teeth into it. And
Hmm.
like you were saying, for example, a lifestyle, as a conscious embodying lifestyle. And as I sink my teeth into that one section, I'm actually tied into the whole ocean, you know,
Yeah.
which is a different perspective because, even in the light worker and starseed circles, it's changing now because everything's changing. But there was a lot of, hey, I'm an expert in this, and I know you're not doing it right, and there was that competition, that we all came from that. But I like the way that you say you can just go to the water, you know, the water part of astrology, and I think that's what you were talking about. But so, like, can you just talk a little bit more about your approach and what you've come to?
Yeah. There's so much that you've also said that I want to respond to, but I can do that. Um, so I started off as a holistic practitioner, and specializing in aromatherapy and reading about plant consciousness and the emotional support that you can get through plant therapy, wanting to make that really tailored to the individual. This was how I came across astrology, because I realized that astrology can do this for people. It creates a very personal, tailored approach to healthcare. And this is called medicinal astrology. This is something that is very well known in America, less in the UK. And so I decided to practice and learn with Gabriel Moji, who is the Institute Federation. He for aromatherapy in the UK. He in the back in the 1970s he orchestrated that, and I went to him, and he had a course on studying plant therapy with astrology. And so I did this study with him, and I found that actually I knew most of it from the books I'd been reading. And I was really, really interested because I thought, this isn't visible enough, this knowledge. So I decided to dig deeper, and I found out that in the history, there were cases where there used to be physic gardens that were grown by monks in the 16th century, which were aligned astronomically to the universe. And the plants were put in sections for the individual constitution. And it absolutely fascinated me. And then I actually came across one in an old ancient burial site somewhere in the UK I was visiting. And I found out that the monks had been killed in the 16th century by the king, and this information was taken away and destroyed. So that made me very interested, because I love it when information is taken away from me. I think, well, I really want to know what that is. So if I'm not allowed to get hold of a piece of information, I'm a person that will go and try and find out what that is, because there has to be a reason. I think when something is being kept quiet or is inaccessible to people. And my research just led me to find out that there were a couple of old practitioners who were physicians back in the 15th, 16th centuries. One was called Jared and one was called Nicholas Culpeper. And they had written books, which are, fairly well known, and they align the plants to the astrology. So the plants have a relationship with the planets just as much as we do. They also get assigned planets and planets to them because if you like, they're like the bridge between us and the universe. So the plants are sitting, waiting for us to really utilize them, to really connect with them. And I think this is going back to what you said about the way we've become separated, you know, from our own consciousness, and now all of a sudden we seem to all be really aware of our surroundings and who we are and our soul's need. You know, the earth is just waiting for us to get back into connecting with the consciousness of the water and of the plants, so that we can really step into that next evolvement as souls. And this is going to happen quicker if we're unified. I think that is what's really missing to me when I reach out in spiritual communities and I try to connect with people. The lack of unity. People are really struggling with, how do we get along together? How do we collaborate? So when I saw you putting out the invitation for a chat, I immediately thought of Pluto. Pluto going through Aquarius at the moment. It's making everybody think and feel about, how do we learn to connect more? How do we learn to speak to each other? How do we learn to listen and to receive? Because we've all got our own trauma that we're dealing with. We've all got our own blocks, if you like. And it is really about working with those so that we can receive this information and then we'll know what to do with it. But this is part of the journey. This is part of the human experience that we're on. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of it has to do with how we receive the energy. And this is where, like you said, everything comes under one umbrella. Energy is what is serving our purpose here. And the levels on which we vibrate on. So having that higher vibrational energy so that we can sit with what's coming forward and we can receive it.
Yeah, I'm following you, even though I keep getting knocked off. I'm able to see the captions on the phone, so I'm following it when I get knocked off. No, I'm totally with you, and it's in line with what I was curious about, which I wanted to save till later. But I think there's actually a weaving here. So I'll explain it like this. Let's say that in this realm, there was a certain construction, you might say, and that construction, like the rest of the universe, follows a certain pattern. So, like in this example, let's say in this realm, you have the stars and the planets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like what you're talking about with the plants, or with the
Mm-hmm.
people, or with colors, or with chakras, or so many different things, parts of the body. There's a relationship. And so I
Yeah,
know people, we've spent a lot of time, you know what I mean? So I know we've spent a lot of time over the years, and there's still a lot of people doing it, and God bless them. Disclosure is part of awakening and all that. That somebody went in and reconstructed the realm's configuration to create a false, or to create a domain that's out of alignment.
mm-hmm.
Okay. And so therefore you have the symbols and the black Q and all this stuff, right? So for me, it's kind of like, okay, we figured this shit out. Now, we're not going to be prisoners or slaves to this distortion. Um, and there is a template. There is something that we've left behind.
Yeah,
Many things, including the pattern. And we can go to so many examples to verify that. The
yeah,
primitive
human
tribes, the
blueprint,
Aborigines,
whatever.
it's just so many things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we have this original blueprint. Yes, thank you. Both micro in my body and macro in the universe, in the realm. And I feel like there's like two phases. One phase is to rediscover the original blueprints that we've left. And then once we rediscover it, and I'm talking like energetically, okay? Metaphorically, energetically. I don't know what that looks like in the
Yeah,
literal experience. And so the second part is as we come into alignment with the true unity consciousness and oneness design, that is the omniscient, oh, you know what I mean? That's
Yeah,
it, period.
the goal.
Then not only about ourselves, but how everything's that veil could be lifted. And I'm not saying that's the way it goes, but let's and and then at some point we even graduate again. Not that they go away, but just in the sense that we are part of that, let's just say galaxy. Okay, we're part of this galaxy as it's part of us, but we're even part of what's beyond it. I guess that's what I'm saying. Like, and I think I heard you say, because I was my signal was bad. I think I heard you say something about quickly. Now that's the thing I understood about, but I think it is that the way this new coding, as it comes out, as it's we've never seen before, like it's not distorted, contagious growth. That's uh, that's premeditated in intent heart. And I love what you said before you came on. It's a perfect example. Like, um, I'm not, I feel, and I think that what you were pointing other mirror of you back, and let's see what happened today. Thank you. Please continue.
Yeah,
Animation.
unfortunately it was lagging. I didn't really hear much of what you said.
I
Um,
know. That's all right. Keep going.
but I just think that it's beautiful to chat about the soul's evolution. And I think from what I did hear that you were saying that what's happening next, we don't know where we're going, but it's about the journey. That I think that I stepped out of wanting to control situations. I looked into conspiracies. I like you said, the knowing and the understanding of what's not right for us. We're letting go of that now. We're not holding on to that anger and that fear. We're releasing that in a big way, and that is very much a big part of the energy that we're experiencing. And the energy is very powerful. A lot of people are experiencing physical symptoms because the soul is evolving to this higher consciousness, where we are able to really tap into that and start to understand that we have more purpose in life than maybe we realized. And I think a lot of people feel quite lost without purpose, and because of the history of our world, um, it's it may be difficult for some to step into this new way of thinking where you really just let go and you stop trying to control everything. And this has been a lesson for me about overthinking too much and using the mentality too much to worry about things that I can't control, worry about what's going on in the political world, worry about what's happening with my family, worry about my friends. This is part of the soul's experience. There's no real wrongs and rights when you understand it. And Dolores Cannon talks a lot about this as well. We are here for whatever is coming forward to us each day. And so just taking that in our stride and learning to sit with whatever's coming forward or coming through us is a really, really good way of helping us to manage what's happening. This is what I do for my clients. My clients come to me and they're struggling with a particular issue, but usually it's about their identity. It's about them understanding how they can help themselves, and they feel disempowered by the systems that we've had up to now, the healthcare system, the government, whatever it is, they feel disempowered and they're looking for an answer so that they can feel like they can take control of their lives again. And this is what astrotherapy, which is what I've named my modality. Mine, it's our modality, it belongs to everybody, is to give my clients their power back so that they can effectively tune into their own soul's guidance and experience the kind of healing that you can get when you do that. And my personal experience of doing that has been incredible, incredibly powerful, because through my own trials and tribulations, stepping into a place where I could trust in my own healing ability and getting to know myself better enabled me to really do quite incredible things and heal from things that I thought I would never be able to get through. So yeah, when you know, and it's not something that you can make people understand. It's not something that you can shout at people, get angry with people, frustrated with people. It's a level of it's like a breakthrough, you know. When people are ready as individuals, everybody will become united, I believe, in this understanding. And this is just where we are right now as a collective, learning to appreciate each other and learning how we can work together. And I'm seeing lots of other people mix modalities up as well, which is really exciting. And I'm glad that's happening because there really shouldn't be any barriers to understanding or learning.
My God. You stopped talking. Can you hear me?
I don't know what happened.
Oh, it's me.
I
I'm getting
lost
knocked off,
you.
but you know,
Yeah.
huh? It's all energy. I was watching you the text that was coming up on the on my phone, but it looked like you stopped talking. Yeah.
Yeah, I
My
did. 'Cause
internet.
I thought I'd lost you and I didn't know. I didn't want to speak over you again, but
Oh, no, no, no.
I
You're
was.
doing fine. You're doing fine. Yeah, if I
Okay.
drop out, you just keep going. But
Okay.
yeah, I think we're gonna have to get a Starlink. Uh, you know, I guess if Santa Claus brings us one of those mini Starlinks, it's like a
We need
laptop, so
something.
we don't have,
It's probably
huh?
just our energy. We're just breaking. I have this thing. If I go near one of those help yourself service things, tills at the
Yeah,
supermarket,
yeah.
I always break it. my energy just breaks, it stops working, and I have to get somebody to come
I
over and try and sort it out for me.
I think I think there's a lot of people out here that listen in on this that can relate to that. Okay, so I'm getting unstable again here. Let's see. Uh, but yeah, we can pop over to something else real quick. Come back to the astrology and do your modality and stuff. And if I get knocked off, just keep going. But you
Okay.
were talking about earlier. First of all, you asked me how I was doing before we got
Yeah.
on, and I just laughed. And then you said something about a lot of people, a lot of people are feeling it in their bodies.
Yeah.
And I've been going like two to 3 weeks now, and I've been on an alignment, a healing that a lot of people I think have been on, a curve that a lot of people have been on. But man, over the last few days, my body, and it always starts obviously when I wake up. Like I'm getting thrown into my body, and there's still parts of me that aren't with me, and
Okay.
the achiness
Hmm.
in my body. You might say joints and bone and tissue. I don't know, but it's been very, very noticeable, like to the point where I'm going, good gosh, this can't go on. But it would make sense too, because as much as the stars are out there, they're also in here, and that's a big part of what you're talking about is the connection, how everything's interrelated. But are you
Yeah.
seeing, can you elaborate on that a little bit? Are
Yeah.
you
So,
feeling anything yourself? Are you going
well, yeah,
through anything in your body?
this, I think this is really good that you brought this up because this is, you know, this comes up a lot in my clinic. People come to me for help and support with healings from anything. It could be headaches, it could be a problem with their ankle, it could be any condition. But what my clients struggle with is understanding that in order to heal, we have to feel. So we have to feel our pain. And we have to go through it not alone. We have to have support, and we have to have support from plant therapy or from a practitioner or from friends or from family. We shouldn't be isolating, we shouldn't be struggling alone. I'm not saying that, but I think people are so used to shutting off, as a humanity is so used to shutting off their pain and not sitting with it and not feeling it, that now the soul wants to step up. It's pushing us into a fast forward state, and the body is feeling everything. We're feeling all our aches and our pains and our grief. And as star seeds and as um, humans that have come through in this ancestral line into this day and age, we're healing going way back. Yeah. So we're healing our mother's work, our father's work, our grandfather's work. And so we're really feeling all of this grief and sadness that it's been trapped in this energy with our energy bodies and those before us. And it's coming forward for us to heal it. And the way I've worked with my own body to heal from trauma and from grief and from injury has always been to sit with it, to sit with it, to feel into it, to speak to it. Because when we work with the mind, body, and spirit, the physical body is part of that. When we escape, whether that's through, it doesn't have to be alcohol and drugs, it can be just avoidance, it can be working too much, it can be any kind of thing that's going to distract us from doing our own work. And it's very difficult for the majority of people to be able to just be okay with that when they've spent a lifetime of running away, however they've done that, whatever form it takes. And this is the lesson that the collective are experiencing now. As we go through this change and we're stepping up, we're going to have to learn how we're going to do that, how we're going to be okay with feeling through our problems and our traumas to heal.
Now that's good stuff right there. And I feel like that there's a relationship like what spurred the question for me was, uh, um, you're right. What you just said, and I think everybody here can relate. This has been, maybe in hindsight, but this has been going on for since 2012, and I know for some people it's before that and after, but overall, this is the unveiling. And maybe, or I'm not going to say maybe, what I'm feeling listening to you is that the reason that I might be having, to be open to, the reason that I might be having this acute pain, and I may be wrong, but it may be part of it, is that as what you're explaining has increased and as life and the experience has moved faster and accelerated, you know, in other words, we used to get something and then it would take us all month to process it and integrate it and come out on the other side. Now it happens like daily. And so how does it come to you? It comes to you through the things that you experience, the things that are presented
Mhm.
to you. Um, and so it's like it's like a voice in your body going, hey,
Yeah.
you know, and I actually
Yeah.
feel like a lot of mine is, and in fact, I know it has been stuff that I've been working on, like say, for example, my spine, from the top of my spine to the bottom of my tailbone, where I had a lot of constriction over the years and back problems all over the last couple of years, that my vertebrae are popping almost to the
Okay.
point where it's scary. Every day,
Yeah.
every night they're popping. And now particularly in the lower, the very top and the very lower. And they're popping and I know my soul's going, this is good. This is good. This
Yeah.
is part
It's
of
a
the process.
clearing.
My and my humans going, oh shit, I might need to go to the doctor and get an x-ray because what if it's just gonna break in half, you know? Some of the pops
Yeah.
are really loud. But anyway, I don't want to get off track. To me, that makes sense. It would make sense because I know a lot of people, my partner, my daughter, just other relatives between us, friends that have had acute symptoms, life-threatening
Yeah.
symptoms, extremely
I would
painful
agree with
symptoms.
that.
Many
I would
different
agree with
things
that. I have
pop
got,
up. Yeah.
yeah, this is happening and it's happening to me. It's happening to my family. It's happening to people I know. People are coming in with very, what they think, strange symptoms. Something's popping, something's clicking, or, I've got this pain shooting through my knee and it's just there all the time and I never had it before. And why is it happening? And it's energetic. It's energetic attunement. And our physical bodies are part of this upgrade. So our physical bodies are going to feel it. And because we're so used to escaping from pain in unhealthy ways, we are not equipped to deal with it without support.
Mm.
So that's where astrotherapy has supported me in my life. It's helped me heal from things. One, I was told I would never heal from. I was told I would be on medication for years. As soon as somebody told me that, I was like, well, I'm going to do the opposite anyway. But it's very serious, and you have to remember that we, like I've said before, we are so used to being told what to do, all of us, and we rely on that.
Right.
The systems have been a huge emotional crutch for humanity, for goodness knows how long, and it's ending. And with everybody being happy that it's ending, we have to think very seriously what next. This is why unity and collaboration and speaking and sharing and working together to understand exactly what's going on is so important, so that we can build in a new structure, a new better way of being. Um, and I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but it feels good. It feels freeing and it feels liberating. Um, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I want to say.
Uh, I love this. Okay. I'm not upset because the thing kept going out, but because that's part of it too, right? Like like you were talking about. There's so many ways to look at it, but like it's really about our present existence at all times. So things happen, you get knocked off Zoom, and before you know it, the whole show's over. You know what I mean? Like, what the heck? But I know the coding's there. I know it's been an exchange and an openness from you. And what I'd like to do, instead of wasting time, uh, Morgan and I are going to make a move in about a week to 10 days. And so we're going to be going through like a state of flux. What I'd like to
Okay.
do is get you back on here after I can get the Starlink, okay, uh, and and get the move done. So anytime from May the 12th, uh, through anytime from May the 12th to the 31st of May, if you could send me a date at the same time, let's
Yeah.
jump back into this and do a second round if you're up for
Yeah,
it. Are
I'd
you
love
up for
to.
that?
I feel like we've just taken the icing off the cake. We have just begun.
Exactly. No, no, I think we could go into a lot of different things, but certainly go into astrotherapy. And we've had some brilliant testimonies from sisters and a couple of men over the years that had a similar story, which was they had this, uh, you know, this illness, this chronic illness or something really bad,
Yeah,
and they just said, no, I'm not doing this. And they,
yeah,
they developed their own modality. Some of those people then taught it to others, and some they just, like I know one guy, they were going to cut his leg off, and he went home and said, "No, you're
wow,
not," and started
yeah,
juicing the next day and taking CBD, and he's never had a problem. 15 years
yeah.
later.
I have my own stories that are similar, and I would love to share them.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
if you don't mind, I don't mean to put the onus on you, but I'm gonna
No?
disconnect my and so if you'll send me a date or a couple of dates, and I'll pick one at this time between May the 12th and May the 31st. And we'll come right back into this. We'll do episode whatever it is. Episode 72A. What is it? 71. So we'll do episode 71A.
Beautiful.
Part 2 or something like that.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you so much, Todd.
Thank you so much. Sorry about all the problems, but we know that was our teams and the energetic
Yeah.
balance coming in, and we're not going to judge it, and we know it's all good. So, but thank you so much. Blessings of grace to you and your family and what you're doing, and I look forward to seeing you next month. Okay?